Johnny, you're gonna need a bigger boat. So serious.
I am Iron Man. This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Well, welcome to this podcast review for August 25th, 2024, and I am JD Duran. I am co-hostless this week as Brendan is off to vacation, and what a time for him to be away with our 2000 retrospective going on. So I've had to do all of the managing of getting that out by myself. How dare he? No, I hope he's having a lot of fun. And honestly, I think this worked out gloriously because since he could not be here to talk about The Crow, I have scoured the internet, and even that might be a little bit of a lie because there was really only one person that I wanted here for this conversation, and she gracefully said yes to me. So joining me for the first time on the show, I'm very, very excited to have her. Here is Kenzie from Offscreen Central. Kenzie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited this finally worked out.
Yes, I'm so happy. I want to say we noted this some time ago. Actually, I think I brought it up when we reviewed The Bike Riders because you were supposed to join us for that. Unfortunately,
Yes.
It did not work out. Although we can certainly talk about that another time, as I know that you equally love Austin Butler to death as well. So instead of raving about him, we're here to sing the praises of one Bill Skarsgård, who you have tweeted about incessantly over the last few months, and no one can blame you for that.
You know, the thing is, they kind of look alike, you know?
Yeah.
They're kind of
Sure.
like each other's tethered in a way.
Yeah.
Like they're both, like, I think Austin could be in the Skarsgård clan, like in another
Yeah.
life.
You know, I had never really thought about that before, but now that you say that, and I'm sitting here looking at a photo of Bill Skarsgård, they could play brothers in a film, and you'd be like, yeah, I believe that. I totally believe that.
I would like to see it, and I hope someone is listening that will make it happen.
You and I will have to champion that. That'll be our new thing going forward. Yeah, because that would be great. I love the Skarsgårds as well. Great family. And I'm excited to talk about Bill in this film specifically. Before we get into The Crow, the 2024 film that is, I want to get your thoughts on the 94 film. I know a lot of people really love it. It has spawned a little bit of a franchise here. This film, the 2024 film, has been in development hell for years and years and years. They've been trying to get this remake done. I want to say for like at least 15 years, this project has been floating around out there. But that is to say, all of these movies are born out of the love of the first film and the fans of it. So I'm curious what you think of the 94 film.
Well, I actually had a poster of Brandon Lee in The Crow on my wall as a child.
Nice.
So,
Nice.
no, I remember like vividly seeing, I have an older brother and he was obsessed with the soundtrack. And when I was finally like a little old enough, my parents let me watch the movie. And I don't know, I just think it's like, I love miniature work, and that movie just has the best miniature work. I love the music. I love Brandon Lee in it. I just think it's really like, I grew up very emo. I mean, it never ended, to be honest with you. I just got better at hiding it, you could say. But it's really special. It's like, I think it does a really good job too of like balancing like supernatural and realism. Before that was really something people were like seeking at, because we didn't really have that many comic book movies at the time. So it does a really good job of like balancing it. And I think that's why it really holds up still. Like if you rewatch it now, I think it holds up so well because it's not trying to do too much with the supernatural aspect. Like you just accept that's how Eric is and why he's operating the way he is. It's not drowning and explaining it or backstory of it. It's just like, this is it, and you roll with it. And it's just Brandon Lee's performance. It's so good, and it's really heartbreaking that he never got to see the way it was received and what could have been, and just how special it is that we have something like that. And it makes me really sad that he never got to see it played out the way it was.
Yep. No, I'm totally there with you. I really like it as well, although we had very different childhoods. I did not the same way you did, but I did really like it. And I did not catch up with it until years later. I would have been 9 years old in 1994 when this film came out. So I caught up with it maybe a decade later as I was in high school and getting ready to move into college. But I also really loved the film. And I think you articulate eloquently why it's so great. It is the lived in aesthetics of the film and the cinematography and the performance there by Brandon Lee. I mean, you look at that film and it is really astounding how they capture the emotion of that character, the ambiance that Lee is certainly portraying in his performance. And it just has this, like, I don't want to simplify it because I do think there's incredible nuance to his performance, but he just looks so cool. Like, he looks fantastic in the film. You know what I mean? Like, you watch him and you're like, man, like, he just looks really great. And like, that alone almost draws you to the character. So yeah, there's something about his performance and his magnetism. It's the makeup work. It's the cinematography, like the composition of that film, I think is really fantastic. Like, it's all of those things working congruently that I think makes for a really engrossing experience. So I've always really liked that film as well. As well, in addition to how the film, you know, channels his grief and the romance of it all, like how that blossoms in the film, I think is fantastic as well. So I do understand wholeheartedly why this spawned more movies, why there's become a cult following of it over the years. So that leads us to 2024, this new film by Rupert Sanders. As we noted, it stars Bill Skarsgård as well as FKA Twigs, Danny Houston in a prominent role here, and a few others that come and go throughout the film. I don't know if I really need to get into a synopsis. It is The Crow. It's a remake. I think we all know what we're getting into here. And especially if you've seen the marketing or the trailers, I mean, this film is exactly as it's sold to be. So with all of that said, let's dive into this new one. Kenzie, what did you think about this remake of The Crow?
Okay, so I did follow how this was in development hell forever. And I was very like upset, especially because the sequels to the original are just so bad. But I will say the second movie has the better soundtrack. And I know that's very controversial, but it does. But I was not really excited about this until they cast both Bill Skarsgård and FKA Twigs. I'm a huge Twigs fan. I love her music. I love all her ballet work. I think she's so talented. But I still actually haven't seen The Huntsman that Rupert Sanders did. But I know people really like it. So I was like, maybe it won't be as bad as I intend. Like, this sounds on paper with this cast. And then a director that people, despite all of the pop culture hoopla around him, thought maybe it won't be that bad. But then when the trailer came out, I was like, this doesn't look very good. But then I went to CinemaCon and they showed a second trailer that they never released, and I'm still very confused about it, that it never came out because it was much better. And I was like, okay. And I've actually seen it twice now. And my favorite part of the 94 version is the romance aspect. And I love that they make Eric he's obviously very tough given everything he's doing, but he's like very soft. He's very like, he just wants to be in love. And I think the original film, you don't get to see that other than flashbacks and through his grief. And what I love about this film is we get to see him and Shelley meet. You get to see them fall in love. And I think it really captures like what many like former goth kids or present day goth kids will say they love about The Crow, is that it's like so romantic and really, that's what like a lot of gothic romance, action, etc. films are about. And I think this film really does a good job of capturing all that and like the emotion behind it and the quick connection between the two of them and like how open they are with one another, that he instantly is gravitating towards her. And obviously a large part of that rests on their chemistry as actors together. And Twigs in interviews has really spoken about how she felt so safe with Bill and how like it was so easy to portray that because she felt so comfortable with him. And I think you can really see that. I love the first hour. The second hour really loses me, or the second part, second act. I was like, I don't know where this is going. But then they really got me back at the third act. So I'm actually one of like 5 people, very not super positive. I just don't think it's as bad as everyone's making it out to be. And I have been told by many men on the internet that it's because I have a crush on Bill Skarsgård. And I hate to break it to you, that is not why. It is sure I gave it more of a chance because it's actors I like, but like it's not, I'm not a hysterical woman. I can watch a movie and separate it. I don't know. I had a good time. It is not the worst movie I've ever seen. It is not 6% on Rotten Tomatoes. Be serious. I had a good time.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Well, here's the thing, and I understand that, or maybe understand isn't the word, because I do think there is a myopic point of view when they approach you. But if you read Kenzie's review on her website, Offscreen Central, there is a balanced perspective, as she just laid out there. It's not as if she's incessantly praising this film. It's the best thing of all time. Like, she lays out her criticisms. It's a very well thought out review. It's not just her salivating over Bill Skarsgård for 2,000 words.
I could do that, but I chose not to because I'm not crazy.
So exactly. And that's the thing. Like, people approach you, and I understand you present that fandom online, as a lot of us do. You're certainly not alone in that, and there's nothing wrong with it. So, but people they clearly didn't read your review, so they just want to come at you with that one-sided perspective. The other thing too about that, I think it's perfectly okay to like things simply because you like the people involved. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
There's like, no way that like people didn't head into like House of the Dragon with being like, oh, I like the people that are working on this. Maybe I'll like it a little bit more. We all do it. It's just like
exactly.
I don't know.
I'm totally there with you.
Thank you.
I'm willing to admit, like I love Michael Bay movies. Is he a great person? Not necessarily. Are his movies good? Not necessarily. I love his aesthetic. Like, I love the Transformers films because I grew up with that property and those toys. You know, I just like those. Like, I like those things, and so I like those movies. Like, but I can separate myself, and we can talk about how flawed they are. Like, you know, we all have those. To your point, absolutely. So I don't like, if you came in here and you said, I give this 10 out of 10 simply
then
because
you
Bill
would know.
yeah. But even then I'd be like, okay, I get it. Like, I have those as well. Like, I'm totally fine. But like,
the moral of the story is let people enjoy things.
Exactly.
I don't know what we're doing. It is obvious. I'm not sitting here like, where's Bill Skarsgård's Oscar? I'll do that for another movie. But like, I'm not doing that.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that's what I admire about you with this film, is that you have salivated over Bill and you have been a fan of his. And I love that. I can relate. But you've also come in and have been extremely objective about it and have offered your criticisms. And I absolutely admire that.
Thank you.
And in a lot of ways, I'm very much with you. I don't think the film is great. I don't think it's 6% on Rotten Tomatoes bad. I wouldn't go that far either. But I do think the script is a little uneven. The editing is especially uneven.
The editing is so bad.
Yeah.
I like mid movie was like, I don't even know if they know what's going on.
It's very possible. Like and I love how the film at times even acts surprised by itself.
Yeah,
There's
it has no idea. It has no idea what's coming next. And I do wonder because I heard it was like there was more sex scenes, there was more graphic violence. And I do wonder if maybe they made some cuts and that's probably why it feels so jarring, the editing.
Yeah, sure.
And like there's just large chunks of things missing.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, could we not have done one more clean run before
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. I think that you're absolutely right there. One of my favorite examples is this moment where Eric is walking down the street and he walks past this car and he looks back and there's someone in the car that he is supposed to kill. And the film is like, oh yeah, we passed our mark. We were supposed to engage with this guy. So then he just gets into the car. Like it's the film just feels like it doesn't know what it's doing and just reacts on the moment, and it's kind of funny at times. So I don't think that it is great. There are absolutely a lot of problems here, but one thing that I do like about it, I agree with you that the romance at the beginning, it's at least I think the script, and again some of the editing, because once the romance is established between Eric and Shelley, the time that passes is very ambiguous, and I don't know if that services the film. But in terms of the performances, especially between FKA Twigs and Bill Skarsgård, they do as much as they can, given the material, to make that work. And I do think the film captures how drawn they are to each other and the love that blossoms there, which is obviously such an important part of this story. I think that is handled well enough. And there's some more flashbacks, some more of Eric grappling with his relationship with Shelley as the film goes. That element, I think, is handled fine enough. And as we get to the second act, I agree with you. There is a little bit of a lull there. The one thing that I do really like about the second act, however, is as he starts to transition into The Crow, I do think Rupert Sanders does a great job, and maybe this is mostly Bill Skarsgård, in all honesty. It's how the film captures him and just how brooding he is. Like just walking down, like I could have watched 30 minutes of him just walking down the street with a crow following him behind him with, the score kind of blaring there in the background. Like there's something about that aesthetic that I do really like here, and Skarsgård kind of tapping into that aesthetic that I think is really great. So I did appreciate that. And then you get to the final act and it's the bloody affair that the trailers promised it to be. So, overall, there's a lot about the screenplay that is very thin, and the editing is a nightmare, as we've been talking about. But yeah, it's not 6% on Rotten Tomatoes bad.
It's kind of crazy. Like I figured when I saw the embargo being 4 p.m. on release date, I was like, oh, they're prepping for the worst. Yeah. But then I saw it and I was like, it's not that bad. But then every person around me was like, that's the worst movie I've ever seen. And I was like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
But yeah. I don't know. Like, and I do think you're right. Like, Bill Skarsgård was the perfect person if we're like redoing this story to like really tap into that aesthetic. Like, it feels really natural to him. It doesn't feel like some guy just pretending to be brooding. Like, he really did tap into it, and like he had like the aura around him. Which is funny because one of the first things he says he likes about Shelley is that she had like a really nice aura about her. And it's like he had like the complete opposite aura. But it's like he does a good job of doing what, and I never want to compare them because it's really different. But like Brandon Lee just had like an aura about him that you like wanted to know more. And it's the same thing here. Like you can tell, I mean, the way they have him with all of his little SoundCloud tattoos. Like he's supposed to look very unapproachable, but he does the same thing where he has like an aura about him where you like you want to still be around him. And obviously a large part of that is that Bill Skarsgård is a little easy on the eyes, but like you still want to know more about him, and you understand why she like feels safe opening up to him because he clearly isn't like a threatening kind of person.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I had a similar response to that, and I do love how these two actors kind of tap into that in their performances, even though they have the tattoos and they're in rehab for some sort of drug issue that may or may not be a part of the characters. Regardless of any of that, what we see in their personalities, in their characters, is really how soft and tender they really are underneath that aesthetic. And obviously both of them are grappling with grief and trauma in their own ways. That's at the core of the characters. But there is this, like, throughout the film, I just kept thinking about, again, despite how they might look on the outside, they came off to me incredibly endearing. Like there's like an adorable quality to them that I just couldn't help but kind of see them as that. Like every time FKA Twigs smiles in this film, like I just kind of fell into my seat. Like she just has this adorable quality to her that is an interesting juxtaposition to how the character is written, and you know, this mystery behind her and something that she's done that's you know, that she can't really get over, that she's afraid to even reveal to Eric. But yeah, you can easily see why Eric is drawn to her, and vice versa. Like Eric he has like this soft, almost tender quality when we first meet him in that rehab center. And it's, yeah, it's interesting. Like it's easy to be drawn to them. I just wish that the film did more with that as it went. Maybe delve a little bit deeper into Eric and how he's wrestling with his trauma. You know, but that's certainly not on the performances. The performances here, I think, are pretty good given the material. Rupert Sanders, I just think, I don't know if he was the right guy. The screenplay is certainly a problem as well, but like it could also just, you could chalk it up to the development hell that this film has gone through, and they just wanted to get something out. It might be more of the producers than anything else. I don't really know, but I think in terms of the performances and how you can be drawn to them, I think the film at least succeeds on that front. For
sure. I do think that we should, as a society, if something's in development for like 5 years, just back away from it. Just like, yeah, I think time the sale, it's gone. Like yeah, it's time to move on.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think that's a good way to go. Like another example that comes to mind as you say that is the Halo movie that was supposed to come out 20 years ago. Like the video game comes out, it's this huge sensation. And they immediately, I think Peter Jackson actually wanted to turn it into a movie. And it's like, okay, he coming off Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
You have me hooked. And then that just went on and on and on for years and years. And then they just scrapped the film altogether, and then they turn it into this TV series. I watched like 2 episodes, and it was one of the worst things I've ever seen. Like just god awful. So yeah, I think you make a great point. At a certain point, maybe just pull the plug. And have you seen the list of names that were attached to Eric throughout all of this as well?
Well, my favorite one is Bradley Cooper. Like obviously, that means a lot to me. Like
yeah.
Well, every time it would pop up in the news, it would always. This is the thing that bothered me about it when it was like just in constant development, like just names being thrown at it. None of the people were ever like, I would never put them on a list together.
Yeah.
You know,
sure.
Because it's like, what are you like? You clearly don't know what you're looking for if you're just like throwing all these names at it. I also would love to see Bradley Cooper's at least tape.
Yeah. It's such an interesting
him
name.
and his Leonard Bernstein makeup.
Yeah, it's
with
hard
the
for me.
tattoos.
Yeah, maybe that is the appeal though, because given what he's done over the last 10 years, and especially in recent years, it's really hard for me to see him as this character. But maybe that is again what makes it interesting. You have other names here like Channing Tatum was rumored at one point. Ryan Gosling, like I guess Gosling could pull it off. I don't know.
He technically did it in a soft boy covered in tattoos. He did that in Place Beyond the Pines.
In Place Beyond the Pines, yeah, that's actually a good point. And in terms of,
he was like, "Let me do something good.
I'm just gonna do, yeah, yeah." And in terms of like the brooding quality, just kind of walking around stoic, he did that in Drive as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess he's already done that.
He's done it. He's covered.
Yeah. Yeah, James McAvoy, I think, was rumored at one point as well.
I feel like he's been attached to every single like development hell kind of movie. Like, I feel like he yeah.
Yeah. No, it's the way this film ended up turning out, like
it does feel like you were saying, like they were just like, let's just get it done. Like just
get
film
it
and get it out. Like it's over. And it's just like, and it kind of feels like that with the marketing, because it feels like they just abandoned it until the week before release. And I know, like, as a Bill Skarsgård fan, like he hates doing press. Like I'm well aware, but he rolls out if he has to. So like, I don't know why they were just like not doing anything for it. And like, I live in LA and like, I have never seen a poster or a billboard for it anywhere. There's still Borderlands posters, but like, I never saw them replace those with The Crow. Like, it just felt like they kind of just like dropped it and they just did all the publicity within the same week it was coming out. And it's funny because like, I'm still friends with a lot of people I went to high school with that like we were peak, emo, and they were like, I didn't even know this was coming. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, and then now it's like, I don't know about where you're at, but here it was only playing 3 times a day. Like it was playing like 11 a.m., 3 p.m., like 8 p.m. And so it's funny, like seeing the box office, I'm like, well, it makes sense to me because like it wasn't really available that often. Like they kind of just like were like, I don't like this. Like they didn't even try. So I just feel like they rushed it clearly to just get it out. And then they also just like rushed it to release it. Like you can already pre-order the 4K.
And that's a big thing these days, right? Is if a film is going to fail at the box office, we're going to get this out in digital. Like this will be available to rent on Amazon by next weekend. Can almost guarantee it. Like that's how they're trying to recoup their money. It does feel as if they gave up on it. I didn't even know they cut a second trailer till you told me.
Well, you know what's crazy about it? So the trailer starts with him in the shower scene, like his butt. And I was like, you want to get people in seats? You put that. Are you serious?
Yeah.
And then it had more of that scene where he's in the SUV, like attacking them all.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, this has something for everyone. It has naked Bill Skarsgård. It has the action. Like, what are we? I don't know. They just never released it.
Now that you say that,
it was the same trailer over and over.
Yeah, because I keep thinking about this film in the like through the prism of it being The Crow, like a Crow movie. But even if you like take a step outside of that for a moment, you have naked Bill Skarsgård in the film. There's several action scenes here. You have all the blood and gore that you want. Like that moment, like that close up on his leg after he gets up from being rolled over by the car is pretty gruesome, but there's certainly going to be a lot of people that are here for that kind of stuff. And then you get all the fighting at the opera, like that whole opera scene with the sword play and the intercutting of the opera itself, I think is pretty good. Like I could see a lot of people really liking the film simply as a comic book movie. Like even if they're not in tune with The Crow and its lore and what it's about, like this does feel like it has its selling points, but they didn't tap into that at all, at least from what I've seen.
Crazy.
And I'm in the Miami area, and similarly, the theaters around me, there was like 3 or 4 options. That while films that came out last week, a few weeks ago, like Deadpool and Wolverine, of course, Alien Romulus, like that was taking up pretty much a lot of the space. They didn't really give much to The Crow, even though that was one of the wide releases this weekend. So my options were pretty limited.
Yeah, it's like they basically were like, we're scaling back, but like they did that on release weekend. So I'm like very confused by that, especially like, I just feel like they could have, I mean, I don't want to speak for people, but they could have done like an anti-Barbie, like, like a goth movement, like wear your all black to go see this movie, like wear your makeup. Like, I don't know. I just feel like they didn't even, especially because then there's like a large backlash to this, and I agree with most of it, is that they let influencers kind of see this before, and they didn't have a review embargo so they could talk about it, while like everyone else had a severe embargo. But it's like, I like that they leaned into like Crow cosplayers, because like that's such a big part of the culture and fans for the movie and the graphic novel and the whole series.
Makes sense.
And I liked that aspect of it. I just didn't like that they could talk about it and nobody else could. Like, it was very weird. Yeah. But like, lean into that. You let them see the movie. Like, I don't know, like do like something about wearing your makeup, they just kind of didn't even try. And it's like, you would think after Borderlands and now this, they had these 2 highly coveted properties that they acquired, that they just didn't do anything. It's very weird. Yeah. I don't get it. Also, no one's even talking about that the score is by an Academy Award winner. Like, I feel like there's a lot of things in this. Like, I know like people don't like the tattoos, but like that's a lot of makeup work, and I feel like no one talked about that either, just because like they didn't like the aesthetic of the tattoos. Which I want to point out that my younger sister is a huge fan of comics and graphic novels, and she was like, this is more in tune with the actual look versus what Brandon Lee's look was. And she was telling me all about how Brandon Lee's initial look was met with a lot of slack, because people were like, this doesn't look like the comic, and then people saw the movie and they liked it, and she's like, now this is the opposite, where it looks like the comic, but people are like, it doesn't look like the movie. Like, it's just, I think there's like a lot of negativity, and like, as someone who really cherishes the original film, I totally get it, but it just feels like people had the 6% Rotten Tomatoes score in their mind before they even saw the movie. And I think that that really bothers me, when people like head into something like negative before they even see it. That's why, like, if I am not feeling something, I will just not see it, because I don't want to go in with that kind of energy. Like, I don't want that. And I try to give everything a fair shot. And I feel like a lot of people did not give this a fair shot. They were like 2 thumbs down before they even watched it. And I think that, like you were saying, there's a lot for everybody. Like, when he pushes his intestine back into his body,
oh my God.
How are we against this? How are we against this? I do wish there was like more of that. And I wish that like the violence wasn't so sporadic. Like, they marketed it, like you were saying, like it's like this like brutal time. And it does feel like the first hour, which is my favorite part of the movie, is very romantic. And I get it. Like, they're both alive, so there wouldn't be any violence, But, and I do think it's like actually a really funny movie. Like, when she's like, why are you leaving too? And he's like, I'm rehabilitated. Like, I don't like,
I'm good.
Like,
I'm leaving. Yeah.
I don't, and it's just like so funny. Like, they could have leaned in a little bit more, even to like the Bonnie and Clyde aspect of them being like on the run and not really knowing each other. Like, I do think there's like, but I do think also it's very clear. I think there's like another version of this movie somewhere that might be like more heightened with violence and other things, because it like you were saying, it's so choppy, and it just feels like there's so many segments that I'm like, was there something else here? Like, his friend that he goes to before the opera, like his apartment, the tattoo guy. I feel like there's like a relationship there that was kind of cut out, because I'm like, I thought this was Shelley's friend, but now it's become clear it's Eric's friend.
Yeah.
And I was just very like, and obviously, like with a movie like this, you care about the two main characters and then the villain. But it's like, I don't know. I just felt like there were like plot points that I felt like they were like, nobody cares, so we're just gonna get rid of it. And it's like, narratively, it was a little confusing. Like, and when that guy popped back up at the club trying to warn Shelley, I was like, who is this?
Yeah, we don't know him. Yeah.
Because they were barely showing that video evidence. So I was like, who is this guy yelling at her, like, get out of here? Like, it felt like lost in the shuffle. Like they were like, nobody cares about the lore, so we don't need to present it. But I'm like, narratively, you needed to give us some strings, like something.
Yeah. It is really disjointed. No, I completely agree. Like she has that moment. It's very brief when she calls someone on the phone. Shelley does, as she goes to check on her friend who had just called her. But like it's like some totally random guy. It's not Eric. He hadn't met Eric yet, or she hadn't met Eric yet. And so I guess it's the guy that you're talking about that shows up.
But randomly. It's like, how are we supposed to know?
But we're just
supposed to randomly place that, because it's very just like, I don't know, like it just, and it's like, I don't know what their connection is. Like, was that her friend, the girl in the beginning? Like, or is it somebody she worked with? Like, and then when they do like the grand reveal of like why Danny Huston's like after her, I still don't get it, because, and not to get into another new movie of the weekend, but Blink Twice, I was like, I just feel like there's a lot of like, there are certain things that like happen that are like plot derivative, like Danny Huston like whispers to her or whoever, and they do whatever he says, but they don't remember that's why they did it, but they remember the action. Like it's very confusing to me. This is part of the reason I don't like see a lot of superhero things, is because I get really hung up on like the logistics. Like, what do you mean he can control her mind, but then she remembers that he controlled her mind? Yeah. Because the way that the guy, when Eric confronts him, the guy's like, it's the most evil thing. Like, I can't get its voice out of my head. And I'm like, but you remember it? Like, but if you can remember how evil it was, why are you doing what he's telling you? Because that's showing me you have like autonomy over your actions, as if you know it's inherently evil. Yeah. And I was like, this is clearly like a script problem, but I was like, this is just not, the math is not mathing for me. Like, I was very lost.
I completely agree. It's very, very strange, especially when they show us visually each time Vincent speaks to someone, and I guess spoiler alert here for the new girl, but I guess since we're here, we might as well get into it.
We might as well.
But yeah, he speaks to them. We see them essentially lose their mind. Their eyes roll back, and then some sort of violence occurs to themselves specifically. That happens several times here. Yet somehow Shelley had survived this. And I guess as we see in the video, she, and again, spoiler alert, instead of her hurting herself, she kills someone else. And then as, again, mystery guy that you referenced earlier, when he's talking to Eric about why they're involved, he talks as if he's also been under the spell, but has survived it as well. So like, I don't understand, like the film doesn't bring any clarity as to Vincent and his powers and how any of this works. And it brings a murkiness to it. Like, I can forgive some of this stuff if there were clear rules as to how this essentially works, and the film around it is really good, and you can easily succumb to the film's central principles, even if a little things are on or off. I mean, that's essentially how I like to watch superhero movies or Transformers. Not everything works, but when it's done well enough, I can just fall into the film. But when it's so murky as it is here, and then it's compounded with the editing and the writing and everything we've been talking about already that isn't great, it just makes it so much harder to simply fall under the film's spell. And I do get caught up on those things. Like the Vincent character, the writing of him is very thin to begin with, and these powers that he has, they don't seem to translate the same, but the film doesn't explain why.
My whole thing with him is, why does he want what Eric has when he has this other thing that clearly, like, and then and this is such a, like, I grew up watching Buffy, the TV show, and so, like, that show, obviously long form storytelling, but I understood all the rules every episode for every bad guy because they were very black and white, you know, like very laid out. But the thing that show really taught me is, like, 95% of these bad guys can't affect, like, Buffy or somebody because they have this, like, pre-existing kind of condition. So why can Vincent whisper to Eric? Like, shouldn't it like not work? But it worked on Eric. And I was like, and then Eric got out of it. Like, he woke himself. Yeah. He, like, woke himself up out of it. And I was like, this is very confusing. It's just in general, the most confusing moment of the movie to me is his whole thing, his entire motivation is to kill this man, right? Like, this is the head honcho that killed him and Shelley. Yeah. This is his big motivation. So he walks into a room where this guy is just sitting. Yeah. And he does not just immediately cut his head off. Why does he give him, like, a minute? Like,
because they gotta do the movie thing. We gotta let the villain talk.
I just don't understand. Like, especially because there had been, like, multiple moments where I was like, oh, the movie could end here. And it didn't, because we needed this final showdown. But I was like, I don't know. And I have to say, I really missed the aspect of the story of the crow with the crow on Eric's shoulder. Like, it only happened once in the movie that it landed on his shoulder, and it was very brief.
Oh, see, I might have missed it. I
but that's the thing. You shouldn't even miss it.
We see him flying around a lot.
Yeah. Or, like, you see the close-ups of the crow, and I will say, I'm not entirely sure, and someone made fun of me for this at my screening, but in the original Crow, it stresses me out that they're all ravens. They're not crows. Oh, okay. And I'm pretty sure these are crows, at least. Like, CGI crows.
I'm no bird expert.
I'm not a bird expert if someone comes for me. But in the original one, they're all ravens, and it really stressed me out. But at least here, I just, like, it felt like it was missing a lot of just, like, I don't know, like, Eric's aesthetic and aura is really good, but it's like the rest of the movie just felt like it was missing. Also, like, and I know I'm not an expert in Detroit, but, like, I felt like the original did a really good job of, like, it felt like contained to this, like, space, and it looked really like the city was pretending to portray. But, like, this one, I know they shot it in Prague, but I was like, this just feels very European and very strange, and, like, obviously, like, they tie in, like, the opera because that's not a very American kind of thing, so it's good that it wasn't set here. But I'm like, where are we? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, and there's just because none of their accents are the same. So I was like, what's going on here? Like, where? I don't know. But I don't know. And that's the other thing is, like, Danny Huston's in this and nobody cares because it's just such a throwaway character part. Like, the whole, I don't even know if he's really trying that hard, to be honest. I feel like he just showed up.
No. Well, how much am I getting paid? Okay. The check cleared? Okay, we're good.
Like, I don't, and I wanted more of his little henchman, the blonde lady. I feel bad. I don't even know who she is, but I wanted more, like, because when Eric kind of confronts her, she gave, like, a really nice little brief monologue about, like, when you first start, you don't realize, like, you're part of it. Like, you hear whispers about it, and then before it's too late, you're, like, participating. And I actually thought that was really interesting of, like, exploring, like, how, like, the people who aren't the big boss get thrown into all these situations. Like, they at first they're just, like, trying to be part of it and don't realize what it is, and then once they do, it's too late. But it was like, once again, then he beheads her and it's over. Yeah. Like I don't, it's just, I don't know.
No, I'm totally with you. As you were talking about the setting of the film. So I am from Michigan originally and have been to Detroit many a times. I'm pretty sure that the 94 film was filmed in North Carolina. However, it is set in Detroit, as you're talking about. And while it isn't exactly the same, since they're not in Detroit, as far as capturing the dilapidated look of the city, especially at that time, I do think the film at least gets that part right. And it's a great compliment to the brooding nature of that film and, of course, its central character. So that I do think works really, really well in that film. And to your point about the setting here, there is something about doing the antithesis of that it does feel a little like, I don't know, like it doesn't feel like an inspired choice. I'll just put it that way. It just feels like it's a random place to set this movie. So you can have a little bit of Skarsgård just walking around in his stoicism, and then you can also have an opera scene. That's kind of what it felt like.
Because it's weird because, like, you know, the scene where they like are all of a sudden, which they never really addressed, they're like on the city street and they're like both filthy from like leaving, like being in the forest and then hitching a ride.
Yeah.
And they're like in their little tracksuits, which I love that their rehab gave them pink tracksuits.
Yeah.
Like, what? But like they're just like dingy and walking on the street, and it's like a really funny scene where you're like, oh, but it would be even funnier if you're like, oh, I know exactly where they are and like how like high end this part is, that like it's so funny they're like so dirty and out of place. But it's like we just have no idea. And I don't mind movies with like vagueness on location, but it's like you were saying, like they needed a big field to film those like scenes where they're like randomly with friends. Are they Shelley's friends? Are they Eric's friends? We'll never know. Yeah. But like they needed like a big lake for them to jump into, and then they needed like the opera, and they needed streets for him to walk down. And it's like I just don't. I needed a little, especially because none of them have the same accent. Like none of them.
Yeah, it's all.
So it's I'm just like, I don't understand. Like it's just, I don't know. It felt, and it's like you were saying, like Detroit added to the aspect they were trying to portray, and this just felt like it was missing some of that. And I get it, you don't want to like completely redo like the world building or whatever, but it's just like it never felt like I was like in some, like I just felt like I was in scenes as they were. Like the locations were just serving the scene versus like the location serving the story, which is like not great.
I completely agree. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think you nailed perfectly the issue. and yeah, it just feels totally random. It's not complimentary to the story or the characters and where they find themselves. I mean, running through Europe might work for something like a Bourne movie, but not a Crow movie.
Because like what is Eric Draven? Well, I guess in this movie he's just Eric. All the press notes are like his last name is not Draven, which is funny. But like, what's his source of income? Like, what is his job? Like, at least with her, you get the backstory that like she has money from this man. But like, also her apartment is just so beautiful, and that is the one thing I will give them. I don't care the reasoning for it. I want all the furniture. I want the apartment. I need it all. Like, also like the way that like when they first put out the trailer and there's like a shot of Bill Skarsgård in like Versace boxers, I was like, I wonder why. Like, what is the purpose? And there was no purpose. It was just like, I was like, okay, like I get it. I also crush on it. Everyone's yelling at me for not like hating this movie. Yell at Rupert Sanders and the costume designer for having no reason to put him in underwear other than they just wanted him in underwear. It's not just me.
Exactly.
Not just me.
Yeah, we got to get money somehow. And we do get the one scene in his apartment, which seems like it's in some sort of like abandoned warehouse kind of thing, which suggests that he doesn't have a lot of money. So I don't know where he's getting the money for that anyway. And that's really all we know about his background, other than it looks like he grew up rather poor as well, on some sort of farm. There's the little trailer house there,
which I still
with the horse.
I don't think we needed that at all.
Yeah,
like I was like, flashback. It was very weird to me. I was very confused by it. I was like, I forgot to look it up, but I wanted to see who that kid was. But it was also never explained, never really gone back to. Like, I didn't need to see that on the horse. I'm not one of those people that's like against like using like stories with animals, but like I was like, there was no bigger purpose to it that I was like, why did we need to see that? Like, I get it. Like, you just wanted to show us why he ended up there, but like, I don't think anybody really needs too much of a considering the lack of backstory and framing for anything else in the movie. The one thing we didn't really need a backstory on is why he ended up in rehab. He could have just been in rehab. Like,
the film could have started there. I mean, if it's to set the mood, or I know it's trying to draw parallels to the grief he's about to experience, but I think we all understand what grief is. And I think the relationship between Eric and Shelley is like
enough.
That's enough that we will feel for him when she dies. Like that.
Especially like they give us like 45 minutes of them together. So I'm like, we're going to feel it. Like, we're going to understand. Even though, like you were saying at the beginning, I still don't understand the time frame of this movie. And the other thing that I keep thinking about, it definitely, and I think it's an editing issue, but so she goes into the rehab center, right? And it's nighttime when she's arrested and put into rehab. Like, but I'm assuming it doesn't happen the same night, because they would have to put her, like, they'd have to at least get some sort of court order, like you have to go to rehab to avoid jail or something. It wouldn't happen the same night. But then it cuts back to her friend that got captured, and they're like telling Vincent, they're like, we found her. And then they cut to him whispering to her, and I'm like, but they found her before Shelley got arrested. So what is the time for? I don't know if it was just like, we need to put the scene back in, and they just put it in the wrong place. But I was like, this is very, very confusing. Like,
it is. Yeah.
It's very weird. I just, the things they chose to give us backstory on are just very weird, considering there are so many things we didn't get any.
Yeah. And they never commit to it. I mean, saying like the horse that's thin, or that whole through line was Shelley's mom and how she sacrificed Shelley for,
which could have been an exciting plot point of people trading their children basically with this man for money and security, versus like they bring it up for 2 minutes and then he controls her mind and she jumps off a building. Like,
not satisfying.
I don't. Also, like the other girl that he was like with for like, he's like presented, and then she's in the car when the thing with Shelley's mom happens. What happens to her? They kept showing us her. What happened to her? Why did he just need Shelley? Like, because he wasn't going after them to begin with. Like, he just like eventually focused on them. Yeah. And I just, what is the time frame even from when that video was captured to like?
Yeah. Like because you have all those people in the video.
What happened to the rest of them? Because there was only 3 of them that he was going after.
Yeah. And there was clearly more than 3 people there.
Yeah.
So yeah, the whole thing is, it's just, I guess we could assume they're all dead. I don't know. And why is Vincent? Because again,
couldn't he just tell them to forget? I don't understand.
Yeah, you would think. And again, when he does the voice, with the exception, I guess, of the I forget the character's name, the lady that Marion, that's her name, like his like right hand woman. But like when he's with Shelley's friend or with Shelley's mom, and he's doing the whole voice thing, like it's kind of an intimate setting. It's just the 2 of them. So, that seems to imply that when he does the voice, it's like in these like secure settings that won't, have, like, how does he not know that a phone is out? Like taking a video, like it's pretty obvious when someone's got a camera.
It looks like a party, and I'm like, why is he there? Like, I don't. And then
like it is weird.
Shelley keeps saying like the things that I've seen, and I'm like, it doesn't seem, because like the press notes describe him as like he was like an aristocrat who was given this power, and I'm like, but it doesn't seem like he's like using them at parties in like a disturbing way. Like it just seems like he's like he's always one-on-one, like you're saying. And I'm very confused. Why is he in this dingy party with these dingy kids? Like, I don't, and like the whole like, oh, she had me play piano for them. I'm like, at like what kind of parties? Because the party we see them at, where it's like Vincent at a party, it looks like just a boring, stuffy room party. Like, I don't, I think they should have, like, not that I want to see like anything traumatic, but it's like they should have at least shown to imply how bad it was versus like he just made her kill someone. I just don't understand the setting of it. And like it just doesn't feel the way they write Vincent, it doesn't feel as in control as every other time he does it. And I'm just like, what was the reasoning he needed this person killed so badly that he like risked it all for this?
Yeah,
like,
and that's the issue, because there's that moment where he berates Marianne that this is getting out of control. And, you know, like, again, like if he needed that young woman killed, why doesn't he just do it in a safer place than at a party? Like we see with Shelley's friend early on in the film. Like they're just it's a
they don't even kill her in her they don't even kill her in her apartment. They like take her somewhere. So
they
it's
take
like
her
not...
somewhere to like this more secure location. And you know, so like why not do something like that? Why do you have to do it at a party in front of all these people? And,
so we can have the movie. So we can have the movie.
It just like they put exactly 30 seconds of thought into the writing of this.
That's what it's just like. That's what's so confusing to me about it is I'm like, I don't understand how like the central point that sets off the entire plot of the movie is just an afterthought that like makes no sense. Like it doesn't. It's just really frustrating that like the performances are good. I do really like the score, and I like how like visually it doesn't look like the other film. And like when there are action sequences, they're really well done. Like the scene of him in the car, like with them, like I really liked the way the camera was placed. I think it was framed really nicely. And like Bill, once again, in a movie that nobody likes, that has him doing great action scenes, like he's 2 for 2 this year. Like what is going on? It just feels like a waste to have all these things that operate really well. And then it's just like the script is just so bad and like poorly structured that like, I don't even blame the editor for all the bad editing. I think like they probably had a lot to edit around, and it was like, what were they supposed to do? And like, it seems like there was a lot of changes like throughout the filming, and then in post, like they were like, this is too violent, we got to cut back, or like this is too, or it's too long, because like a lot of people are complaining about the runtime, and it's like, I feel like they just weren't given much to really work with. But you know, they kept in all the romance. They kept in, like, you know, the other thing I could have done without is the whole purgatory thing. I just didn't vibe with him going back and forth so many times, and this guy explaining the rules to him. I was very
I mean, that, like, I think my issue with that whole sequence is, again, because it's a movie, we have to contrive these little bumps in the road, because you know, we get the romantic scenes at the beginning, as we've been talking about, and then he states to him, you need to make sure your love is pure, otherwise all of this is for nothing. And he sees the one video, which again comes after the context. Like he had just talked to Mystery Guy, and where that dude, again, sort of explained, because this film doesn't explain anything, but somewhat establishes that Vincent will speak to you and it makes you go all crazy. Now, again, in terms of the writing of this film, it murkies the water, as we noted earlier, but that should at least establish with Eric that once he sees that happen to Shelley, that she's not in the right frame of mind. And it's something he speaks to later on in the film. Like, that wasn't her when she did that, when Vincent brings that up again. But when he sees the video, all of a sudden it's, oh, well, I don't know. I don't know anymore. I can't do this. I give up. And
it's also just so funny, because I'm like, what did he think was going to happen? Like Did he think he could just be like, okay, I'm dead, like I give up? Like I don't it also doesn't fit with the way that like he had been like, and I actually like think that it could have been handled better where like it does speak about like doubt in relationships and doubt in love, or like I can't remember what I was watching. I was watching an older movie where it was like about someone finding something out about their dead spouse and like really change their perception on them. And I'm like, that's a really interesting thing to go down, but not when we're not only the audience, but Eric himself has been prefaced with, if this man whispers something to you, it is supernatural and you're out of control of your actions. That is not an action you would judge someone you're like deeply in love with. Like you wouldn't even judge like a friend for what they're like, a stranger even. Yeah. Because you have the context of this man is controlling them. So it just doesn't fit with anything. And like, if they wanted to do something about like him seeing the video before he had the context of Vincent in his voice, but like he had the context, he knew what it was. I totally get it if it was like shocking to see it, but then he didn't react that way. But he really was like, I'm done. Like, peace out. Like, I'm over. And then when he got called out, he was like, no, that's not what happened. And I'm like, no, it is. Like, exactly. It is.
Immediate reversal. Like, oh, okay, my life for hers then.
Like, I was just like, it just felt very, I don't know. And it's really funny because when I was at CinemaCon, they were like, this is a franchise. And then now they're like, we never meant to leave it open for another one. I'm like, like I get it. You knew it was gonna flop, but like like other people were in the room and CinemaCon when you were like, this is a franchise. Like,
well, that's what's so funny because like there's that voiceover at the end where, and I can't remember exactly what he says, but something along the lines of, you know, like sacrifice my love, like that relationship was totally worth it. But then he's like, almost, like something about almost, like it was. Like I'm almost satisfied.
Well, I'm assuming it would have been him in this like demented hell, and her trying to get him out of it is the sequel.
Well, that's like it definitely feels a little sequel-ish there. Like I was waiting for text on the screen. The crow will return.
Like it's very like I'm like I see what you guys were doing. You guys just didn't actually set it up to do that. Like, it's interesting.
You know, and the thing is, like, you know, we've been talking about how sloppy the filmmaking is here, the non-existent marketing. They still spent $50 million on this movie.
It was just on Shelley's apartment.
Clearly.
And Danny Huston.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, absolutely wild. Like, why? So you invested that amount of money, but you're not going to spend any money to make sure you recoup those assets at all. Like it just,
I wonder if they had like a strict cutoff and that's just why there was no marketing. Because I'm very confused by it. And like people keep telling me, they're like, no, I saw the trailer on like YouTube all the time. And I'm like, I don't think that's what I'm like, and that's not costing them what like anything. And it's like they have that we got Bill Skarsgård back on a talk show. Like he went out. He left his basement. He went out into the world.
He was in the world.
And I just feel like we wasted it. And I'm like, and I also like selfishly am a little like, is he gonna like recoil for Nosferatu? Because like this is so bleak and people are being, that's the other thing is I'm like, people are being so mean about this movie and like they're not this mean about like Borderlands. And I'm like, what are we like I just don't I don't know.
I don't understand that either. I haven't seen Borderlands, but
you're not missing anything. But like
I bet.
I just feel like this is no way the worst movie I've ever seen, let alone it's not even the worst movie I've seen this month. Like I don't know what we're doing here. And I just think that it is fine for movies to be like bad without being like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. Because there's no way this is the worst thing you've ever seen. And like the way that the internet was yelling at me when I said Deadpool was the worst movie I've ever seen. I think you need to see more movies if you think this is the worst thing you've ever seen.
For real.
Like I don't know. I don't know. At least I'm just really thankful it didn't try to be like a shot for shot remake and like a
oh my gosh,
like
yeah,
is the exact same aesthetic and the exact same look. And I think like we need to at least say that and acknowledge that versus like what could have been with someone lazy and like and like with that kind of thing, you run the risk of all these younger people not even seeing the original and like just seeing. We all know that's not going to happen with this. This will not be the first Crow that younger audiences see because no one will talk about this in like 3 months.
Yeah, absolutely. If anything, I do hope it inspires people to go back and see the first film if they haven't already, because it is really good. As for Bill Skarsgård, I will say, like, I do think he's good here. I love the aesthetic. I love his brooding approach. And looking at his filmography, I kind of like a lot of the choices he's made. Whether the films have panned out or not, or how people feel about them might be, that can be a different story. But personally, looking back at a lot of the stuff he's done over the last 5 or 6 years, especially, like I was never a huge fan of the horror film or series It growing up, but I thought he was fantastic as Pennywise in those two movies. Deadpool 2, I know he has a small role there. A film that I loved more than a lot of other people is Assassination Nation from 2018. I thought was a fascinating thematic exercise, and he has a role there. Eternals is
he's in Eternals.
He is, like, it's not a huge role, but and it's just a voice. It's a voice role, so it's not huge.
Oh, so I'm not missing too much.
Yeah, but I I think that's kind of underrated. Like that, I think that's kind of top tier MCU for me. And then people loved Barbarian, John Wick Chapter 4. I haven't seen Boy Kills World.
Listen, there is a cut of Boy Kills World that he does the voiceover that people saw last year at TIFF, and that is not the one that came out. We got one that's really narrated by the Bob's Burger guy.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So like for me, I don't like that voice. So I was like, but he's really great, like the action scenes in that film. Yeah. And I think it's like a really like this, it's the same thing. The script is so bad, but like he's really good and the action in that movie is really good. And it's like very bloody. He has a cheese grater. Like it's nice. Fun. I don't know. But he does like really cool things. And I think like what's really cool about him is he's always different. Like I never feel like I'm watching the same actor, which is like really it runs in his family because all of them are like that. Like they're all really interesting actors. And I love that he's in Barbarian strictly because the director was like, people don't trust him. So like they just think he's a bad guy, like inherently in horror movies. So we have to get him. And I love that Bill was like,
absolutely. Like I like the choices he's making, and I like the performances and what he tends to bring to them. They're very distinct, and he looks great on camera as well. Like he has a great relationship with the camera that I always find appealing. So, say what you will about the film. It certainly, he does his damnedest to make it work, or at least make his character work despite the writing. Same thing with FKA Twigs as well, although her role is obviously somewhat limited, but I think she's very good when she is here. Do you have any final thoughts on The Crow?
Just that I think people will come around that it's not the worst movie of all time eventually. I think, I don't know. I think it's like fine. And I felt that way this entire summer, to be honest. Like there's only one movie that I really was like, this is the greatest movie I've like seen this year. But I think that this movie is fine. And I think that let people be hot. Like, I don't know. Like, let people be hot. People want to be hot in movies. We will go see them. I saw Hitman. Because all these people were losing their minds over that movie. And that movie is just two people that people think are hot. And that was it. and they did not get the same heat that I did for this. That is actually a really funny thing, and I should have tweeted that.
Okay.
But that's my final. Yeah. I didn't like Hitman, but I did spend 6 months of people telling me it was like not even 6 months. Last year at TIFF, people were like, "This is the greatest movie ever." And then by the time it finally saw it, I was like, but my issue is the same thing with Twisters. I don't really like Glenn Powell. Like, I just don't get it.
That is a little bit of a hot take.
Yeah. I'm waiting. I'm waiting to be convinced. I don't know. I liked him on Scream Queens, but I know he's good and I see what people see in him. It just doesn't work for me.
That's fine. Yeah, that's perfectly fair.
Hitman rested on if you fucked with him or not. And I didn't. So I did not with the movie. But it's like, fair. I didn't come after people being like, you just think they're hot.
Well, yeah, that's
the way that I have been attacked.
There's no need for that. Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to go after people. Like people don't come after me as much. And maybe it's because I try to not, I avoid conflict. I'm not very good with it. So I don't tend to.
That's a good way to be online, though. That's a good way to be online.
But I did have a tweet that people did not like about Alien Romulus. And the funny thing about it is, like, all I said was, I don't think it's a great movie, but I think it's one of the best shot films of the year. So I was actually complimentary.
Oh, you can't do that. You can't do that. You can't do that.
People were like, screw you. Like, calling me stupid.
I tweeted the same thing with Alien. I was like, I didn't really love it, but I loved the third act. Because I was trying to clarify, like, it's not that it got weird. Like, I just wish there was more of that. And people were like, have you ever seen an Alien movie? I was like, well, yeah. Like, in my review, I was like, it's kind of like a greatest hit Alien movie. Yeah. And the only part I liked about it was when Fede was like, let me make my own movie. And they were like, did you know he remade The Evil Dead? And I was like, I did. I did. I did. like,
I know.
Like you
Twitter
can't criticize anything. And I just know, like, I'm already, like, do I go private for Nosferatu? Like, I don't.
I know.
It was the same thing with the bike riders. All these people were like, this movie sucks. You just think Austin Butler is hot. And I was like, so does Jeff Nichols. Like, did you see this movie?
Exactly.
Like, he's not even the lead. He's not even the lead. And, like, the movie is like, here's this hot man. Like, people get entranced by actors. Like, that's why they're paid so much, because they need to take care of themselves to look good. Like, I don't. But you can't make it.
There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah.
There's nothing
we
wrong
want to
with
see
that.
hot people on screen. That's a big part of going to the movies. Absolutely. And I guess a lot of people feel that way about Glenn Powell. I mean, Hitman works for me, not just because of him, but the Richard Linklater of it all. He's just one of my guys. I love Linklater.
I'm originally from Texas, so that's like they're supposed to be my little posse.
Yeah, that's your group.
They're not. They're not. I don't know.
Okay,
I'm waiting.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's fair.
I'll check out the next one. Would it be their third if they did one more, right?
Yeah, because, how many have they done? They did Hitman. They did Everybody Wants Some.
Right? So it would be their third?
The only thing is I was trying to remember if Powell was a part of Linklater's animated film that came out, last year or 2 years ago?
Oh, Apollo.
I can't. Yeah. Apollo, 11 and a half, what it was called. I don't know. I can't recall. But yeah, I think they're going to work together more.
Oh, he is in it. He is in
okay.
it.
I thought maybe he was.
Good call. So is Zachary Levi?
Yeah. So yeah, I think they're gonna be. Because they co-wrote Hitman together, so I imagine they're gonna continue that little fling there. But at any rate, as far as The Crow, my final thought on this, my experience watching this in the theater was pretty glorious, because I had this woman sitting in front of me who she was clearly the target audience for this movie, because she was clapping and cheering and standing like she was at a sporting event.
I love her. I need to be where is her Twitter? I need her.
I should have said something to her afterwards because she was fully into it. And look, depending on the movie, I don't necessarily condone being loud and that kind of.
But sometimes
it's called for. And look,
wait, know what's funny? At my press screening, people clapped during the opera scene, and I was like, that never happens at press screenings. Yeah. And I was like, you know what? Like, especially because I heard like people sighing the rest of the screening, so I was like, good. I was like, good, we got them somewhere.
Exactly. And I mean. So I guess it depends on the film, but in this case, like I was totally having a ball just watching her be so fully into it. Like every twist and turn she was, and then at the end she was crying hysterically.
Oh my God.
The sacrifice. And like, I totally felt for this woman. Like she was totally with it. It was just the best thing to see. It was awesome. It was totally worth it. So
I love that.
So that is my final thought on The Crow. Hopefully you all enjoyed this conversation. If you agree or disagree with anything we had to say here, please leave a comment below. If you're watching on YouTube or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, reach out to us on social media. You can email us in sessionfilm@gmail.com. Kenzie, thanks so much for being here. This was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored that I finally got to come on and talk about one of my men, I did it. I apologize for, having a child. It makes it hard to podcast, man. Like
I'm totally there with you. I know.
Like, I don't know how you do it so much. Like, hats off.
I know. Most of the time we have to do these at night after my kids have gone to bed. That's usually the best time for me, which can make for some late nights sometimes.
Yeah.
Hats
off, because that's a lot of work.
I appreciate it. For some inside baseball and context into that, we just recorded, as we are recording this, we just recorded our 2000 retrospective. So Brendan and I got together again after my kids had gone to bed. We did a review of Almost Famous, which should be out by the time this episode is live, so you can go and check that out. And then we did our top 10 movies of 2000. By the time we got done recording that, it was after 1:00 in the morning. So
oh my God.
It was a late night. It usually doesn't go that late, but
that's crazy.
Like, and even watching the movies, a lot of the times I have to go after they go to bed. So I'm looking at 10 o'clock, 10:30 showings, depending.
That is brutal. So if you're listening, 5-star reviews all the time, because that is a commitment. I don't think people realize how hard it is. Like, people are always like, it's just watching a movie. And I'm like, you have no idea. Because sometimes I'm like, I go in and I'm like, she was so hard to put down. And now my mind is like racing because it was such a thing. And then I'm like, that's not a good way to head into a movie. Like, it's a lot of work. And
it is.
The way and this is what we were just talking about, the way you consume movies, a lot of it has to do with your mindset. Like, if you head into something with the wrong energy, it can dictate how you see the movie. Like, I didn't like Bridesmaids the first time I saw it because I was really stressed out about school. I mean, now I'm well aware it's one of the greatest comedies to ever exist. But when I first saw it, that movie was good because I was very stressed. And when you have children, your mind is never at rest.
No, it isn't. It isn't. It's a lot of work and a lot of trying to figure out scheduling. And I'm totally aware.
Bravo.
I appreciate it. And again, thank you for your time, because I know you have to deal with the same thing. So I do appreciate it.
Anything for this podcast and Bill Skarsgård.
There you go. I do appreciate that. Tell us where we can find you on social media, and where can we find your work online?
You can find my work and plenty of other amazing women at offscreencentral.com. And you can follow me on social media for more Bill Skarsgård tweets at Kenzie Vanunu.
Yeah, please go give her a follow. Check out all of the great work over at Offscreen Central. It's fantastic. I love following you guys over there, reading your reviews, checking up on your Oscar punditry and predictions and everything.
Don't worry to everyone listening. The Crow is not in any predictions. I promise.
Yeah. But yeah, go check it out. It's all wonderful. So yeah, really do appreciate you being here. Appreciate your support. With that, as we wind down here, Kenzie, do you have any final thoughts on anything before we get out of here?
We're just almost to Nosferatu season. We're almost there.
We're getting there. Absolutely. Yeah, I can't wait for that film. I am really looking forward to it. I just got, because we just did that 2000 retrospective, I just got done seeing for the first time Shadow of the Vampire. Are you a fan of that movie at all?
I'm mixed on it. I'm like on the lower end. Okay. Yeah. I'm not a comedy.
Fair enough. And it is a satire through and through for sure.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I love the original Nosferatu, of course, as a lot of other people do. And I just found that to be different than I expected it to be. I didn't really know what I was walking into. So it becomes this interesting commentary on the filmmaking process.
Yeah.
Less so on Nosferatu just becomes a vehicle. Yeah. But I do love the Willem Dafoe of it all, though.
It's going to be so funny to see him like in reverse, basically.
In reverse,
like, it's going to be so funny. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting for sure. All right. Well, with all of that said, thanks again for being here, Kenzie. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you next time on the In Session Film Podcast.